The ground trembles before anyone notices it. A low, restless sound rises from beneath the land as if something buried deep has finally decided to wake up. And in the middle of this quiet storm, the people who depend on this land are about to face a truth that can no longer be avoided. The morning starts with the kind of silence that feels wrong, like the world is holding its breath. The oil fields stretch out under a pale sky, and everything looks normal at first glance. But everyone who works here can feel it something is off. The machines stand still, waiting for orders, while the workers move slower than usual, exchanging looks that say more than words. They have seen trouble before, but this time it feels different, larger, and closer. There's a tension in the air that presses down on their shoulders, a warning that refuses to be ignored. Rumors started the night before, whispered across radios, and passed from one tired worker to another. Someone said the ground near the new rig had shifted. Someone else said they heard a strange echo under the surface, like empty space where solid land should be. No one knows the full truth yet, but they know enough to be afraid. The land here has always been unpredictable, but it has never been silent in this way. This quiet feels dangerous, like it's hiding something sharp beneath it. At the center of this rising whirring stands the man who has carried the weight of this land for years. He walks the ground slowly, studying every crack, every patch of disturbed soil. His eyes move with caution, not fear, but there's a heaviness in his steps. He knows the land better than anyone. He knows its mood, its threats, its warnings. And today, the land feels like a stranger. The familiar rhythm he trusted is gone, replaced by an unease that settles deep in his chest. Around him, people wait for answers, but he has none yet. They look to him because they believe he can steady the storm before it hits, but even he cannot pretend this is normal. The land shifts beneath his boots, not enough to alarm the others, but enough to confirm his worrying. Something is changing. Something big. Something that won't stop simply because they want it to. The land has its own story, and today it's turning a page no one is ready for. He scans the distant rigs, tall against its skyline. They have always symbolized progress, power, and survival. But today, they look fragile, as if one wrong move could bring everything down. He knows what pushing too hard can cost. He has seen good men break, seen families torn apart, seen entire projects collapse because someone refused to listen to the land's warnings. And now he fears they may be standing on the edge of another disaster, one that could swallow everything they built. There's a meeting waiting for him. Voices demanding explanations, decisions, and direction. But he isn't ready to step into that room yet. He needs a moment to face the land alone, to gather whatever truth he can before he stands before the people who rely on him. He kneels, brushing his fingers across the soil. It's dry, but not in a way he recognizes. It feels hollow, as if something beneath the surface has shifted or weakened. It is the kind of sign no one wants to find, especially not on a site this important. Behind him, an engine starts, breaking the uneasy quiet. More workers arrive, unaware of the small tremor he felt. They laugh, they talk, they carry their tools. Life continues as usual, at least on the surface. But he knows things won't stay normal for long. The land has spoken, even if only he felt it. And once the land speaks, danger is never far behind. As the sun climbs higher, the warmth does nothing to ease the cold uncertainty settling over the fields. Today is only the beginning. The real storm hasn't arrived yet, but it's coming fast, loud, and unstoppable. And when it hits, everyone will feel the truth he already knows. The land is changing, and no one can control what comes next. The rest of the day moves with a strange rhythm. Like time itself is unsure whether it should hurry forward or slow down. The tension that began in the morning has now settled into every corner of the drilling site. People try to go about their tasks, but their eyes drift toward the horizon again and again, searching for signs that confirm their fears. Even the wind feels uneasy, carrying dust that swirls in odd, uneven patterns, as if the land is breathing differently. Inside the temporary office, the air is heavy with anxiety. Papers rustle, screens flicker, and conversations pause whenever the door swings open. Everyone pretends to focus on their duties, but their attention keeps drifting back to the same question: what's happening beneath their feet? They know the land gives and takes, but it rarely does so without warning, at least not like this. The smallest tremor feels like a message, and no one wants to be the first to say it out loud. At the center of the office sits the woman who handles every crisis before it becomes a disaster. She scans reports with steady eyes, but even she cannot hide her unease. The data doesn't make sense. Pressure levels rising when they should be stable. Ground movement patterns that repeat with no clear cause. She taps her pen against the desk, a habit she only slips into when she's truly worried. Numbers never lie, but right now they're speaking in a language she doesn't fully understand. She lifts her gaze and meets the stare of the man who was out on the field earlier. He stands there quietly, dust still clinging to his boots. She can tell by the way he carries himself that he felt something important out there, something he hasn't found the right words for yet. She doesn't need numbers to know the truth. She can read it in his face. Something is wrong. Something deep. They step outside together, away from the noise of machines and worried voices. The sky has grown darker than it should be for this time of day, with clouds gathering low and heavy. The air tastes like metal, sharp and strange. She watches him study the ground again, as if searching for the one detail that will make everything clear. But clarity remains stubbornly out of reach. He tells her about the tremor he felt, a brief shift, small but deliberate, as if the earth was adjusting itself. She listens carefully, not dismissing a single word. In this line of work, instinct matters as much as instruments, and his instinct has saved them more times than she can count. If he says something is waking up under the land, she believes him, even if the others won't. They walk further out onto the open field, far from the noise of machines. The silence here is deeper, more unsettling. She kneels and touches the soil, expecting it to feel dry and warm. Instead, it feels cold. Not the normal coolness of earth, but a deeper cold that sinks into her skin like a warning. She pulls her hand back sharply and meets his eyes. No words are needed. They both understand. A gust of hot wind sweeps across the land suddenly, as if trying to cover up what they just discovered. It carries the smell of oil mixed with something else, something unfamiliar, like the scent of ground that has been broken open after centuries of being untouched. It sends a chill down her spine. As they make their way back toward the site, distant machinery rumbles to life, but the sound feels wrong, too loud against the heavy silence surrounding the land. They know they need to tell the others, but neither of them is ready for the reaction. Panic spreads fast in a place like this, and once fear takes hold, control slips away quickly. Still, they cannot wait. The ground is giving them signs, subtle, sharp, undeniable. And if they ignore them, the cost will be far greater than lost time or damaged equipment. It could mean lives. It could mean the collapse of everything they built here. By the time they return to the main site, the sun has dipped lower, swelling the shadows and turning the land into a dark, restless sea of shapes. The workers look at them, sensing the shift even before any words are spoken. The truth hangs in the air like a storm cloud waiting to break. Tonight might be their last chance to prepare. Night settles over the land like a slow-moving shadow, turning the oil field into a maze of dark shapes and blinking lights. The usual noise of engines and clanking metal has died down, replaced by a deeper, heavier quiet. It's the kind of silence that forces people to listen to the land, to their fears, and to the truth they've tried to avoid all day. Even the workers who usually laugh and argue late into the evening now speak in low voices, careful not to disturb whatever is stirring beneath the ground. Inside the meeting cabin, a crowd gathers with tense faces. The lights flicker every few seconds, as if reacting to the energy crackling through the room. Everyone knows this gathering isn't routine. They can feel it in their bones. The man who surveyed the field stands near the front, and the woman with the reports beside him. Together, they carry the weight of what must be said. though neither of them truly knows how to say it without sending a wave of panic through the people depending on them. He begins by describing what he felt: the tremor, the shifting earth, the unnatural silence. As he speaks, the room grows still, and no one interrupts. They have seen him calm during storms, accidents, breakdowns. But tonight, there's a strain in his voice that makes even the bravest among them tense. The woman steps forward next, her fingers tight around the sheets of data she no longer trusts. She explains the pressure spikes, the strange patterns, the sudden changes in ground temperature. Her voice is firm, but the uncertainty beneath it is clear. A murmur spreads across the room like a slow wave. Some try to brush it off. Maybe it's normal, maybe it's temporary, maybe they're worrying over nothing. But deep down, everyone knows that the land never behaves this way without a reason. And that reason is never small. One of the older workers, a man who has lived through more drilling crises than most of them combined, leans forward and speaks softly. He talks about a time years ago when the ground shook before a major collapse. How the signs were ignored. How people paid for that silence. His words sink into the room like cold rain. The tension tightens further as a distant rumble rolls across the field. Low and drawn out, not loud enough to cause alarm, but strong enough to freeze every face in the cabin. It feels like the land itself is listening to their conversation, responding with a warning of its own. Some stand from their seats, instincts flaring, eyes darting toward the door. The rumble fades, but the fear it leaves behind does not. The woman suggests a temporary shutdown of the newest rig, the one closest to the unusual readings. Immediately, voices rise in disagreement. Shutting down means time lost, money lost, progress lost. It means reports to corporate and questions they might not have answers for. It could cost careers, but pushing ahead blindly could cost far more. The argument grows heated, splitting the room into those who fear the land and those who fear the consequences of stopping. The man who felt the tremor raises his hand, and the room slowly quiets. He speaks calmly but firmly. There is no safety in pretending. There is no victory in ignoring warnings until it's too late. He reminds them that the land has kept them alive for years, but only because they respected its rules. Tonight, the land is telling them to slow down. And ignoring that message is not bravery, it's foolishness. Silence wraps around the room once more. One by one, the workers lower their eyes, their earlier resistance fading. They may fear the cost of stopping, but the cost of disaster is far greater. The woman sets the shutdown plan on the table, her voice steady again. They will take precautions. They will run checks through the night. They will listen to every sign the land gives them. And when dawn comes, they will decide what happens next. As people rise to leave, another faint vibration hums beneath the floorboards, so subtle that only a few notice, but undeniable. The man steps outside, feeling the cold night air sting his face. The sky is moonless, heavy with clouds that gather like a warning above the fields. Far in the distance, the ground seems to ripple slightly, as if stretching in its sleep. He knows then that they made the right choice. But he also knows it may not be enough. Something beneath the land is waking faster than they expected. And the night is far from over. The hours after midnight are the longest. The kind of hours that pull at the mind, stretching worries until they become something heavier, something that digs into the chest and refuses to let go. The workers stay awake even though no one ordered them to. They stay because the land feels different tonight, alive in a way that makes sleep impossible. The floodlights cast long, thin shadows across the ground, and each one seems to shift when no one is looking. It's as if the darkness itself is listening. The man who felt the first tremor walks the boundary of the site again, his lamp cutting through the night like a weak blade. Every sound seems to loud, every crunch of gravel beneath his boots, every rattle of a loose metal sheet in the wind. He stops every few steps to place his palm on the ground, hoping for stillness, fearing what he might feel instead. But the land remains silent for now, holding its secrets beneath the surface. It's the kind of silence that feels less like peace and more like a held breath. Inside the small control center, the woman monitors the screens with tired eyes that refuse to blink for too long. She's been studying the same charts for hours, looking for patterns that will explain the strange behavior. But instead of patterns, the numbers keep stacking into something unfamiliar: pressure rising in pulses, temperature dipping in brief, and natural drops. None of it adds up. She knows the equipment is working fine. It's the land that isn't. A sudden thud shakes the roof of the control center, not strong enough to damage anything, but strong enough to make her jump. Just falls from a beam overhead. She rushes outside, expecting a fallen tool or loose debris. Instead, she finds the workers gathered near the new rig, all staring at the same patch of ground. Their faces are pale, eyes wide with something between confusion and fear. She pushes through the crowd, and when she reaches the front, the sight stops her breath cold. The soil near the base of the rig has sunk a few inches, forming a shallow dip that wasn't there an hour ago. The edges of the dip are cracked, not randomly, but in a spreading pattern that looks disturbingly deliberate, like something underneath pushed upward, then relaxed again. No one speaks. No one knows how to name what they're seeing. The man arrives moments later. When he sees the ground, his expression hardens. He kneels and touches the soil gently, expecting warmth. Instead, a wave of cold bursts through the ground, rising into his hand like a silent shock. He pulls back sharply. This isn't normal. This isn't natural. The woman kneels beside him, her fingers brushing the cracks. They're warm, far warmer than the surrounding soil. Cold and heat in the same breath. Pressure and release fighting just beneath the surface. Its movement. Not the small tremors they feared. Something bigger. Before they can act, the wind shifts violently, sweeping across the field with a force that tears loose tarps and sends a howl through the night. The floodlights flicker, struggling to stay alive. Workers scramble to secure equipment, their voices rising in panic. The land answers with a deep, low groan, sound so massive it feels like it's coming from the belly of the earth itself. It rolls beneath their feet, slow but powerful, turning every heartbeat into a drum of fear. The man shouts for everyone to move back. His voice breaks through the chaos, pulling people away from the sinking soil as cracks widen, stretching outward like dark fingers. The ground trembles again, heavier this time. The woman grabs her radio, calling for an emergency lockout of all machinery. But before she can finish the call, the lights explode into darkness. The entire field goes black. For a long moment, there is only silence. The kind of silence that presses against the ears until it feels like the world has stopped. Then, slowly, the emergency lights flicker on, weak but steady. Their dim glow reveals the dip in the ground has grown deeper, twice as deep now, and still changing. The soil moves like something breathing beneath it. The workers stand frozen, unsure whether to run or wait or scream. The woman looks at the man, eyes filled with unspoken questions. He shakes his head slowly. Not because he has answers, because he doesn't. The land is no longer warning them. It is reacting. And whatever is waking beneath them is no longer content to stay hidden.